Okay, I've just started flying sim, and I've seen a lot of posts on Reddit and YouTube asking for help. So here I'm going to share. And if you're like me, you get in a flat spin when you go into SB Air. So to recover, you go opposite full rudder, and that's right rudder in this case. Until you get control, you throttle down, and then you gently bring the throttle back up. And this is impossible to do. You can't recover from a flat sim with mouse aim. So I thought I'd start the video off and just demonstrate that it's possible. And here we'll go into my controls. So these are what I use. You can set them up any way you want. A lot of guys set them up differently, but I'll explain why. So you need to go into full reel controls. I separate my small and large caliber guns so I don't waste ammo. And I've carried that over from my mouse aim settings. I'm not worried about missiles here, but I can fire them with the primary and secondary mode selected. And as you go into this, I'm just going to show you real quick the brake setup, the mechanization for my flaps, right button, left button, up for my gears. I've got both brakes tied to the X button. That helps me brake evenly. I know a lot of people like to control themselves on the taxiway. I'm not worried about that. I've also got a keyboard, and I've got a couple of things binded to the keyboard, but the trim fixation, the elevator trim, aileron trim, rudder trim access are important to have separate. And you'll see why in a moment. And I don't use the manual engine controls. I have the start setup ready to go. But here's the key. In the roll access, a lot of guys will tell you to increase your nonlinearity and reduce your sensitivity, and I started that way, but now I've got everything set to full. I've got a very small dead zone, and I did this for all three of my control access because it was very unpredictable, and you'd start small and it'd go big, and if you can see up in the auto detect access, you can see the sticks moving. And it'll give you a feel for the control. If they're too twitchy for you, if you can't control the movement left, right, up, down, then start with a little bit of nonlinearity, which means it moves a less amount in game than the stick is actually moving. Now I fly with the Control Freaks, the button extenders. If you don't know about them, look them up. That helps give me better control. I started using it as a sniper in Battlefield and have brought it over to this game, and I like the way it flies. Now with the throttle, I'm showing relative control. I'm reducing the control step, and that's every time I touch the button, it will adjust by 1 increment, or in this case 15 increments, 15%. And then I'm just going to show you how you go to and save the settings. So you can press the R1 button, and I'm going to, in this case, overwrite my full control settings, but you can see I also have settings for the Phantom, for a radar plane, and for regular prop planes, and it makes it easy to switch between. So those are my settings, and continue without them. And here I'll show you, I like to go into test flight, and I don't like to do a mission because I don't like the other planes shooting at me when I'm trying to figure things out. So here I'm coming in for a landing. I was going about 400. I have dropped my throttle and my trim is off. So you can see I've got my gear down, my flaps are out, and now I'm adjusting my elevator trim for the reduced throttle that I'm going to use for landing. And I'm adjusting my elevator trim to give me a nose up attitude to make it a little easier to land in the proper position. So as I come in, I'm not going to worry about aligning with the runway too much. I'm still learning how to control this thing in full rail, and the field is just fine. I end up over the runway anyway. This turns out to be a pretty nice landing. And I'm going to let it roll on because I'm going to show you, I mentioned earlier with the controls, the separation between the machine guns. And so here, as I taxi to a stop, and apply a little rudder to keep myself on the runway, I'm going to fire off the machine guns and then the cannon just to demonstrate that the buttons work separately. And this way you're not unloading all your cannon ammo. Some planes you have very little ammo in them, or separate machine gun calibers in this case. So you can see the smaller ones and then the larger ones are going. So here's a couple of quick gun runs. You can see me playing with some negative trim here. I found that I was really fighting the airplane to get the pipper on target. So I started out with a little negative trim so that I could raise the gun up to shoot. And that helps me keep the airplane in view. I'm still adjusting this, so I don't have a good answer. Every plane seems to be a little bit different. And you'll have to figure out what works for you, which is why I wanted to demonstrate this. Too many people in YouTube just say, do it this way, and they don't explain why. So here you can see I'm a little high, and I missed those shots. I still need some practice aiming, and I'm happy to say I've gotten my first few kills in SB. And now we're going through the trim process. And you saw I had the shift button. I'm using the L1 and the L2 as shift buttons. In this case, I'm using the L2, and then the up down for the elevator trim, the up, the right left for the aileron trim, and then the right stick with the shift key. And now here's the slip indicator. And it's not intuitive. I'm not a pilot. I'm still learning how to do this. And I saw a couple of people mention it on YouTube, but they didn't explain what's happening here. So what you can see is that my slip indicator is to the right, which means my plane is kind of crabbing across the sky. It's flying in one direction, but it's askew. And so obviously you want to try to get it as straight as possible to optimize your flight efficiency. And so now what I'm figuring out is I was trying to adjust the rudder to the right, and I need to be adjusting it to the left to get that bubble to come over to the left. So you can see the slip indicator right in the middle of my screen. Now I've got it still off to the right, so now I'm figuring out that I need to go the other way because I had my aileron trim correct. The plane was flying level. So I'll let you watch this process because I think it'll help you learn, and if you know this already, just fast forward a little bit. So I'm trimming it for my battle conditions, which is going to be about 80% throttle. And you can see I've got the slip indicator in the middle now. Now I'm just fine-tuning the aileron trim. And once I get that tuned in, I'm flying straight and level with a slight rise. My slip indicator is in the middle, which means my plane is not crabbing. And I'm okay with the gentle climb. If I let go of the controls, this is the attitude the plane will take. I need one more little aileron adjustment, which I make. I'm happy with that. And I push the button for trim fixation. And what that does is it saves those settings. So every time you spawn in this plane, and here I am coming back into spawn, and you'll see at the bottom, it remembers those settings. So there are my elevator, my rudder, and my aileron settings. Now, it's important to mention that some planes don't have aileron control. You can go into flight test and set them the way that you'd like. And even though you can't adjust them in real game, they're there and available for you. So here I'm doing my pre-flight. I get my flaps out. My settings are there for me. If I want to make any adjustments now, I still can. Sometimes I like to increase my elevator for takeoff to help me. And this is me flying the plane with now my saved trim settings in SB conditions. So that's it. I hope this helps you. This has been The Bleeding Edge. My call sign is Edge. I hope I see you in the sky. And as always, fly right, check your 6. Edge signing off.